Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Today, we're going to be talking about car buying. My name is Kim. I am a financial wellness coach here at New Hampshire Federal Credit Union's Centers for Finance and Education. So, I'm going to talk a little about what we do, and then we'll jump right into the presentation. Um, as a financial wellness coach here at the credit union, we offer these classes, these free classes. Um, And oh my God, why can't I flippin'? Hi, thank you for joining me. My name is Kim. I am a financial wellness coach here at New Hampshire Federal Credit Union's Centers for Finance and Education. We bring these wonderful educational classes to you, but also I wanted to talk a little bit more of what we do in addition to the classes, especially for those of you who might not be familiar with New Hampshire Federal Credit Union. We also offer one-on-one coaching. And as a financial wellness coach, you would be seeing me. What we do is we help people with financial basics, okay? Um, and taking the knowledge that you're gaining, whether through the educational classes or if you want to meet one-on-one to get the education, what we do then as a coach is we help you implement that education. So we take your knowledge and we are able to mold it into real world and help you start moving in the direction that you're looking to go in. And we cover all financial basic topics. You know, if you're looking to start the home buying process or saving for a home, we check to see where you are, and we'll get you to where you need to be, or at least help you, give you those tools that you'll need. If you want to build your credit score, if you want to learn how to budget, if you want to save, how you can do that. If you want to get out of debt, we'll help you. So we do a lot of that, and we have a lot of our educational webinars that cover that. But sometimes people just need help with, okay, I have the knowledge. Now, how do I start? Because that can be a big obstacle for a lot of people, and that's what we help with. Okay, so if that's something that you're thinking, on the last slide here, we're going to have all our information on there for you. So feel free to reach out. I will also, in addition to that, with our webinar, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask any questions that you have regarding the webinar, and as we go through the class, if you have any questions. We're doing it a little bit differently. So what's going to happen is I will not be addressing any questions during the presentation. Okay. We have found that people don't want to be disruptive, even though this is for you. People are very kind, and they don't want to disrupt the webinar, and so they feel like if they ask questions, then all of a sudden we're going to stop where we are, we're going to lose the momentum, and people feel bad, which you shouldn't, right? This is for you. So we're going to do it a different way. So whenever you ask a question, it's actually not going to come directly to me. It will actually come to my email address. So I won't even see it until after the presentation. Okay? And so when I send out our email after the fact, with a copy of the presentation, with a copy of the recording, and I will also attach all the questions that came in with the answers to those. Okay, so you don't have to worry about being disruptive. You can still, as the class is going on, still ask those questions, and we just won't stop, and I'll just reply to those questions in the email. I will have, even if you don't ask a question, if there's someone else, I will give the questions and answers to everybody who registered. Okay? All right. So just wanted to let you know about that. So, and also I'm going to be shutting off my camera. That way we can just focus right on the presentation itself. Okay? All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be talking about car buying. Now, there's going to be some things that we're talking about. So we're going to be talking about how how consumers actually are purchasing vehicles now and how that's actually changed in maybe the last time that you bought a vehicle. Is it a good time to buy used versus new? What time of year is typically best? And right now with interest rates, we're going to be talking about tools and tips. One of them is about getting the best deal, actually deals with your credit. And so we're going to be talking about that and ways that you can check your credit. And that way we can make sure that you're in the best position to purchase a vehicle, okay? All right. So this is probably the biggest place that it's actually changed since last time we purchased a vehicle. So we have the typical in-person dealership, which used to be the only way you could really purchase a vehicle other than social media. So this is when you would go into the dealership, you talk to a salesperson, and it was kind of sketchy because you never knew what type of salesperson you were going to get. Because even the bigger dealerships, like a salesperson's a salesperson. They're trying to make a sale, right? And there are honest salespeople, and there are not so honest salespeople in every profession. I know car dealership salesmen and women tend to get a bad rap, but if you have sales, you can have good and bad no matter where you are. Okay. And so this was a little hesitant for people, but dealerships also, the way the sales people got paid, used to be the norm was commission based. Okay. And so that's where a lot of the competitiveness came, and some people that might not have been the most honest, it just breeds a atmosphere of being even less honest. And inflating things because they're trying to get the sale. They're being competitive, and they found that might not be the best way to do it for salespeople, especially with vehicles. And so a lot of the dealerships in the recent years have actually been changing over from commission-based to having a set pay for their sales. And so they might have other incentives going on as far as, they're still obviously going to have their goals and they want to meet their goals. And therefore bonuses might be on those type of goals rather than the individual incentives, okay, and commission-based, because that's what really kind of made people like, I remember my mom, we all felt bad because we had to deal with it when we were young. My mom, because I have 3 sisters, so we had a family of 6, and we needed a van because at that time there were no gigantic SUVs. And so my mom was looking at a Ford Aerostar van, and she found one. She found one on the lot, and the salesperson was like giving her these pitches, and my mom, she trusts people, and she shouldn't have trusted the salesman. It didn't have AC. Imagine having 6 people in a vehicle that doesn't have AC, and 4 of those being young children who whine a lot. So my mom, because she actually bought it in cooler weather, so when she test drove it and she had the windows down, Of course it felt great because it was cooler weather. Once it became 90 degrees and having those windows open, it did nothing, absolutely nothing. And she was bad mouthing that salesman up and down. And it's like, and even as a kid, I can think of like, he could have said no because she was buying brand new. And her plan was actually planning on ordering it. And she got talked into buying the one off the lot that no one could get rid of because it didn't have AC. And so it's so funny that my mom was so upset, but it's like you went in there wanting AC, and she just, he was just a really good salesman and pitched it to her, and she got sucked in. And so that's the type of thing that people were like, you know what? I'm done. These salesmen, they da 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 da. But so dealerships, definitely in-person dealerships have changed. Now we also have online dealerships like Carvana, Cars.com, even some in-person dealerships are offering it online as well. Okay, so this is for people that hate going to the dealership. They do all their shopping online practically. I am not one of those. I need to go to the dealership. I need to look at the car. I need to drive the car. I need to have that car inspected by my mechanic before I do anything. And that's just who I am. It's just who I am. The online dealerships, so you can do everything that you normally can do at a dealership. You can browse the cars. You can talk to customer service about pricing and things like that. Financing can be a little bit difficult because with in-person dealerships, you're usually looking and dealing with financial institutions that are in the state that you live in, with the dealership typically being within that state or the surrounding states. And so there's a lot of paperwork that goes into getting a car. And so usually when you're doing the in-person dealership and you're working with your financial institution, it's usually a relatively seamless process of getting the paperwork because they're usually all in the same state. With Carvana and other online dealerships, they deal with people across multiple states. Every state is different when it comes down to how they do their paperwork, how the states like the titling, and so there's a lot that goes behind the scenes when you're talking about some place that deals with multiple states, okay? So sometimes it may be difficult to get financing where you want to get financing just because there might be a few more barriers that online dealerships might have to deal with when it comes to certain type of paperwork like the title and things like that. Okay, so if you're looking on online dealerships, just be aware that it may be a little bit more difficult when it comes to the paperwork. So you may end up needing to just do financing through them. So that's going to be something that you want to consider. Another thing that you want to consider is delivery. So we all know about the post office. We all know about Amazon delivery and how if something comes on time, that's exciting. But when something is delayed, it is delayed. So you're going to see that with the online dealerships, it's kind of the same thing. So if it's on time, great. But there are those times where it gets delayed. There have been stories that I've read that people have totaled their car, just went on with renting a car until they were going to get them from their car from the online dealership, but then there were delays in that. They ended up spending a lot of money on rental vehicles just waiting for their car, and they're like, you know what, I should have just went to the dealership. I should have just did it. So depending on your situation and how soon you need a vehicle, that's what you want to keep in mind as well. Okay, because with the online dealerships, they will send the car to your home, but you have 7 days to really look over the vehicle have it test drive it, and if you don't like it, return it. And then you also want to make sure about their return policies. What do those entail, right? Because when you go to in-person dealership, you can do all that ahead of time before you sign the purchase and sales. That you can't do with the online dealerships. That's all after the fact. So it's whatever you're comfortable with and your situation. So you want to make sure that you pick the situation. You pick the avenue that's best for your situation. Okay. Social media is very good for private sales. Okay. If you have someone that is selling their vehicle and they just don't want to trade it in because they feel like they could get a better deal, you can typically get a better deal when it's a private sale as well, because the dealership is always trying to, whether it's online or in person, they're trying to make money. So they'll undercut trying to buy it from you, and then they'll jump the price up because they need to make it worthwhile, right? And so sometimes going through social media, especially if you're looking for an older car, or like if you have kids and they're looking for their first car, that may be a good place. Also, friends and family. If someone has a vehicle that you like and they're looking and they want to trade it in, say, hey, are you willing to give me a deal? Because most likely they'd get more money from you than they would get from the dealership, but you'd still be making out because it's less than what the dealership would sell to you. So friends and family is a really good avenue that I don't think a lot of people consider, right? So usually when we're typically selling a car, or trading it in, we don't even think of these other options that we can do. Offer it to friends and family. Hey, I'm looking at trading in, and this is the car I have. Is anyone interested in this car before I trade it in? It never hurts to ask, and if no one is, say, okay, I'll just trade it in. And then if someone is interested, then you have that possibility. So it definitely is worthwhile to talk about that. Okay? So in this market, we always want to talk about what you need versus what you want. Okay? Because a lot of people, when they go to purchase a car, really focus on what they want and not what they need. And sometimes what they want is unattainable at the moment. Okay? And being a financial wellness coach, I see this all the time. I see couples that are paying more in their car bills than they are their mortgage. That should not be the case. Remember, cars depreciate, which means the car value goes down. So if you are buying this vehicle that is crazy expensive and therefore getting a very long loan on it, you are upside down quite a bit off the get-go, okay? And that's not a place you want to be. And you don't want to be paying for this car forever, especially if it might not be what you need, okay? So you want to look at, will you be driving a lot? If you will be driving a lot, maybe get something with better gas mileage is going to be better for you. Some people are thinking about getting electric cars. That's great. And they want to be, better with the environment and things like that. But it's like, okay, if that's what you're looking for, you want to make sure that you're going to have places that you can charge it. If you're not going to have places that you can charge it, maybe right now is not going to be the time, even though they did say, I've been reading up on vehicle articles, and they're saying that the electric vehicle, the EVs, are going to continue to get more popular and more popular and more popular, and therefore you're going to see more establishments putting in charging stations, parking garages, things like that, which is good, because you need those if you're going to have an electric car. Will you need something larger for work? Now, this comes depending on what you plan on doing for work. You may need a larger vehicle, you may need a truck. Okay? And we all know trucks are extremely expensive. So it's okay, what do I need? And versus what do I want? If you're going to be using that truck for work, do you really want to get a beautiful truck that you don't want to get dinged up? Probably not, right? Because you're going to be using it for work. So you might want a truck that's going to be durable, that's going to last, and who cares how it looks? It's for work, right? 4-wheel drive, all-wheel drive versus two-wheel drive. So you have front wheel and also rear wheel. So this is when we're talking about mostly in New England with the weather, depending on what you're comfortable with. For instance, I was taught how to drive in the winter. My parents, once we had a great snowstorm, they brought me out. Dad told me that if I can drive in a blizzard, then I can drive every other day of the year. Okay, that's how I was taught. I was taught in a front-wheel drive car, so a two-wheel car. That's how I was taught. I am extremely comfortable driving in the snow. And so I have a vehicle that is two-wheel, and it is front. I actually did own a pickup truck. Now, all you people out there that know about front wheel and rear wheel are going to laugh at me because I did purchase a truck because I absolutely loved it in my younger years, and it was rear wheel. So what that is a bad choice for New England. I had to actually pack down because there was no weight in the back of my truck. So rear wheel is when you hit the gas, that's the rear wheels are what spin. So in the winter, it's much easier to pull in the snow than it is to push. Okay? So think of a sled and think of you going up a hill with somebody. Is it easier to pull them up the hill or push them up the hill? Much easier to pull them up the hill. Same goes for the vehicles. Okay? And so when there's no weight, the back just fishtails. So if you ever see someone fishtailing like crazy, especially a pickup truck, that's probably the case. So I had to weigh it down. So after that, I'm like, okay, no more rear wheel. Not in New England, but two-wheel I'm very comfortable with. But there are people that are not comfortable driving in the snow, and they feel more protected with four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive because the wheels all work together. So again, what do you need versus what do you want? I'm very comfortable with front-wheel drive. Love it. And you also have to think of pricing too, and we'll get into that about new vehicles and what their price is going for, but also the cost of fixing them. Okay? Certain brands. You're going to be paying more for certain brands than you are for others. Jeep has always been popular, but the Jeep Wranglers have been excessively popular lately. And those vehicles, it's funny because if you have drove a Jeep Wrangler, it is I drive one whenever we go on vacation. We rent one because it's just fun. But I would never want them as a all-time driving because it's like the dash is really high, and you get a lot of road noise, and it's not the vehicle for me, right? Just not. And they're very expensive they tend to cost a lot to repair, typically. But when you pay for them, their price tag is up there. You're paying for the brand. There's something there. Just like with Subarus have, when they first came out, they had a great following, and they were really hardy vehicles, and so that brand got stapled that they're a really good brand, and so you're paying for the branding. So you have to think about that too. Me, I don't care what brand I drive. I am looking for a reliable vehicle. That's me. I don't care what it is. It could be anything, right? Safety features. This is another one that kind of people get caught up in. You have to remember that the vehicles on the road have all went through safety features. They all went through. They have to meet certain criteria. So if you're looking at one vehicle over the other, especially if it's like a 1 year old, 2 year old vehicle, remember that they went through safety and they passed safety regulations. I had one client come in that was really confusing wants versus needs. They wanted to buy a brand new Jeep something because it had like 7 or 8 airbags and they felt like it was going to be really safe. And unfortunately, they did not make, and I said, why do you need this specific vehicle? Well, we're thinking about having a family, so we want to have something that's, I'm like, now you're, and in that part, what you have to look at is, how are you coming to this choice? Because they were talking about a possible situation, that they were thinking about starting a family, so they wanted something now. That is a very sticky situation because it's like, well, that's not what's happening now. So you really don't need it now. You want it now, and you're finding an excuse that fits that narrative, right? And so that's where you have to really take a step back and go, okay, what do I need? For instance, when my husband and I started budgeting, and midway through our paying down debt, I needed to get a new vehicle. I had a Premier SUV, had all the bells and whistles, black, chrome, leather seats, heated seats, all that good stuff. But then I had to tell myself, okay, our financial goal was to get out of debt because we wanted to be homeowners and we wanted to start a family. That was our goal. So I had to tell myself, what do I need versus what do I want? What I need is a reliable vehicle that's going to get me to work because I want to get paid. And I want to have it be cheaper, but it has to be reliable, and I want it to be lower miles because I want it to last. And so that's how I ended up with my little Mazda 2. Those are little economy, like compact cars. Is it what I wanted? No, it didn't have any bells and whistles, right? None. But it's what I needed, and that's what I went for. And so that's what we have to keep in mind when we're looking at a vehicle. Okay, what do you need versus what do you want? And if those kind of come together and you have the financing, and we'll talk about the pricing, because that's going to help you in your decision. We had a certain amount saved up in cash for a vehicle, and that was our determining factor as well. What we needed and what we could afford matched, and that's what I went for. Okay. So, an upgrade in your vehicle may have increased related expenses. Okay, and right now, after the pandemic, we're gonna look at some of the prices of vehicles. The price of vehicles, especially used vehicles, has went up. We're also going to talk about interest rates and how that affects the price as well. But you also want to keep in mind, if you have a 10-year-old car, that it probably may not have features that your new car is going to have, and therefore you have to think about, okay, let's now look at repairs, right? Let's look at registration and inspection. Registration and inspection. Registration is based on the MSRP. So what is the value of that car? Okay, that's how they do your registration. So if all of a sudden you went from having this car that may be worth $10,000 to saying, I'm going to get a $40,000 vehicle, well, guess what? Your registration is going to be a lot higher. Is that something that you can afford? Okay, Repairs. The more electronics, the more bells and whistles you have in a vehicle, the more it's going to cost. If you get foreign vehicles, those are going to be more to repair. Okay? So you have to think about those costs as well, because those costs are something that you are going to have to deal with throughout the year. Okay? Talk about just maintenance too, regular maintenance. What type of maintenance? What type of oil changes? Do you have to have the best oil changes? What type of gas? Do you have to have the most expensive gas? That you want to check out, because that can really change your needs, right? Because all of a sudden this car that you want might be like, oh my God, this is going to be ridiculously expensive. And you end up realizing that that's not what you need. Okay. Also, the car payment. Like, this is something that we're going to talk about when we talk about the pricing of the vehicle as well, and the car payment. And again, we talked about gas, and not just if it's going to need premium gas, but also how far are you driving? I drive a lot. I needed something with much better gas mileage. And so that was one of the needs that I was looking for when I was looking for a vehicle. I need something with very good gas mileage. Okay. So that's something that you want to look into, because last thing you want to do is get a new car that has crap for gas mileage, but then your kids are now in traveling sports and you're traveling all over the place, right? And you're like, oh, yeah, we didn't think this through. So now we're going to look at how much can I afford. So this is where we really come in and we can help, especially with the one-on-one coaching. We talk a lot about budgets, because budget is really the foundation to any and every financial basic class. And we use the budget as a tool, and we have it as we use a zero-based budget, so every dollar is accounted for. But this helps you understand what you have going on. And this is everything, all your monthly expenses in one spot. This isn't just bills. This is expenses. So like food, gas, your pets, shopping, all of it. Okay? And that's what the budget is here to do, is really give you that snapshot. Because if you just look at your bills and then off the cuff, the salesperson says, well, that's going to be $500 payment a month. And you just think of your bills and, well, I make this and my bills are only this. So yeah, 500 should be fine. But what you don't take into consideration is expenses or savings. Are you going to be able to save for that vacation if you have a $500 car loan? And how long are you going to be paying off this car for? Those are things that you want to look for, especially now, right? Because prices are inflated, interest rates are up, and so buying a car now is really expensive, okay? And here's some examples of car loans, both used and new. And so I have some values here. And you can see where a couple of years ago, usually car loans were going for roughly like 1.82%, and they're up. This is if you have the best credit score too. They're up depending on how old the vehicle is. You may be looking at around 7% for a car loan, right? 5% if it's new, okay? And this is what I wanted to show people, because this is what a lot of people don't realize. So this is a $15,000 car, right? If we go ahead and finance that, let's say we do a 3-year loan, 6.69%, you're going to be at $461 per month, which is under the average. The average for a car loan right now is $550 per month, which is disgusting. But overall, if you do the 3-year loan and you pay $461 a month, you are going to be spending $16,596 on this vehicle. All right. So that's about $1,500 extra in interest. Okay. Now, if you push the loan out 2 more years, so now it's a 5-year loan, same interest rate, it cut your payment down to $295. But now your overall payment is $17,700. Okay? So now that increase, you're buying this vehicle that is depreciating in value, but yet now you're actually paying more for it because you're pushing out the payment, right? So that's something that you have to consider as well. Are you willing to pay more for something that loses value? So in this case, you'd be spending an additional almost $2,800 for this vehicle just to push out the loan. Okay? So that's what you have to look at. For instance, this is where a lot of people will look at new vehicles because they say, oh, well, the interest rate is lower because the vehicle is newer. That is very true. That is how lending usually does it because it is a newer vehicle. It is less likely that something will happen to it. And so the interest is lower. But you also have to look here that if you do a 3-year loan, and what we usually tell people is if you can't pay a monthly payment at the 3 to 4 year mark, then it's too much vehicle for you. Okay, so this one, because of the interest rate, this vehicle is priced at $34,860. 3-year loan, it's over $1,000 a month. Okay, and you are going to be paying a total of $37,476 on that $35,000 vehicle, which is an additional about $2,600. Okay, and so again, right off the bat, you're paying more for this vehicle than what it's worth because you're tacking in all that interest. Let's jump to 7-year loan. This is where I get people because if you can see, if you push it out to 7 years, interest rate goes up because now you're holding that vehicle longer, and most people don't like to hold their vehicle for that long. I do. I tend to drive my vehicles until they're kaput skied before I get a new vehicle, until they say, yeah. Until my mechanic says, Kim, it's not worth it anymore to fix this. Okay, that's when I look. So let's look at this one. The 7-year loan, you're going to be, again, this vehicle is $34,860. If we do the 7-year loan, that brings your monthly payment to $516, which is just below the average. And by doing that, you spend a total of $43,344 on this vehicle, which is $8,500 above what it's worth. Okay, and so that's something where you have to really look at and say, is it worth it? Would you buy this vehicle if this was the price tag? If you say no, then why are you choosing this option, right? Because that's how much you're paying for it. And this is something that is not shown. And so this is the type of tool I want to give to you. And so you can do your own research and you can say what's good for you. So some people, what they will do is they will put money away and they will save and save and save. And then when they go to get a new vehicle, they'll have their trade-in, but they'll also have money down. And that will definitely help keep you from being underwater. And what we talk about underwater is owing more on your vehicle than what it's worth. Okay. So that's going to be something you want to do ahead of time. My husband and I, we wanted to not have a vehicle loan. So when we went to look for my vehicle and we had a certain amount in cash, that was what we went by. Nope, we're not financing. Could I have gotten a really nice vehicle? Sure. Would it have helped us get to our financial goal? Not at all. That wasn't what we were working on. And if I didn't have that plan, if I didn't stick to my guns, would it have been very easy for that salesperson to have me go into more expensive car in a heartbeat? Okay. So this is what we want to look at. Examples of car loans. And this is something that you can do. There are calculators all over the place where you can go to and you can calculate. You can look at your financial institution and see kind of where the rates are, or and go from there and see, okay, if I do, this is the quote I got for a 5-year loan for this. How much am I really paying for this vehicle? All right. So that's something to look at when you're buying a vehicle, especially right now. You can see that this is a used 2015, and right now we're in 2023. And so with that vehicle is an 8-year-old vehicle, and it's still going for $15,000, right? And that's a great price. So it's one of those things where you want to make sure that you're really putting in the planning to do this, because if you don't, that's when you can get yourself into a bad situation. And we've seen people in really bad situations with autos. And especially now with the interest rates being a bit on the higher side and the prices of cars being higher right now, you want to do your due diligence and you want to do that planning and understand exactly what you're paying when you're looking at these vehicles. And I tell people too at this point, I'm like, well, with the car market, they're expecting, that the interest rates are going to be dropping in the next 5 years. They're also expecting that the price of vehicles are going to be going down in the next year or so. So it's something that, do you need a vehicle now? Again, we go back to the needs and wants. Do you need a vehicle now? If you do, then you don't have a choice. You have to look. But here's where you do the planning ahead of time. And like, okay, this is what I need. This is what I have. This is what I'm not willing to go above, and so forth. If you don't need a vehicle and you just like, oh, well, I just paid off my vehicle and I've just always traded it in after I'm done paying it off, it might be worthwhile to see what happens in the market, especially if your vehicle is still reliable. Um, and, it's always a decision, and you can always talk to somebody else and say, hey, this is what I have. This is what I'm looking for. Some people are looking to downsize. If that's the case, go ahead, take a look, or contact one of us, and we can see what's going on, and we can help you with the math part of things and see, if it's going to be worthwhile for you right now, or possibly see what things are happening. All right. So one thing I wanted to touch base on is leasing, because a lot of people find that this is something that they want to do. I am not a fan of leasing. As a financial wellness coach, it is the most expensive way to have a car. Okay, so it might seem worthwhile right now to do that. During the pandemic, there was a lot of people that got to work from home, and so they're like, "Oh, this is great!" And so they thought about getting into a lease because they no longer had to drive to work. And then once things were done and the smoke cleared, bosses were asking their employees to come back into work. And all of a sudden, people who had leases, which typically go for 3 years, were like, uh-oh, this isn't good. The reason why it's not good is you tend to have limited miles. So depending on how much you drive, is kind of the contract that gets written up, and you have limited miles. If you go over those miles, fees, okay? You have to maintain the car in good condition. So if you have animals, if you have kids, then it's probably not going to be in good condition when you go to trade it in or get another lease, and more fees, okay? If you can no longer afford the payments, you can't just trade it in or sell it like you can with a vehicle that you own or that you bought, even though you're still making payments on it. You can't trade it in. Not as easy. If you do trade it in and you terminate early, you will get termination fees. This can actually equal the amount of the lease for its entire term. Okay? So, unless everything goes as planned for 3 years and there's no dings on the car, there's no internal damage on the car, you stayed within the miles, and you didn't have to terminate or anything like that, and everything is hunky-dory, then fine. Sometimes, you know, certain at a certain age, if you're just running out to the grocery store or going out to something like once a week or something, sometimes that people will lease, but usually at that point, people will buy a car and have that and not have a payment. And it's usually like their last car. My gram did that. She had her last car for 20 years. Okay. Actually, I think she had 20 years. She had it for 20 years. Because she didn't have to, use it that often, and she kept up with the maintenance and stuff, and it was still a lot cheaper than leasing. So I usually don't recommend leasing. I know people love the idea of being in a new car, but it's really the most expensive way to own a vehicle. So that, again, in your planning, please, if you're thinking about leasing, think about it in the long run, and how that's going to affect you. Okay. Oh, sorry, it just jumped like all over the place. Okay. So when is a good time to purchase? This is, and I know that with this webinar, it may not fall on these times, but according to and I got all of this from Yahoo Finance. Okay. So a report says that May is the ideal month because this is when winter and spring auto show seasons have stopped and new vehicles previously on display are coming to the dealer showroom floors. Okay, so dealerships want to get rid of the old inventory, so they can offer deep discounts. It's kind of like, even if you think of a store like Target, or if they're getting new fashion designs, the season's changing, they're getting new designers, and they're getting a whole new thing, that they can put a bunch of stuff on clearance, right? Dealerships are no different. Okay, so same with cell phones. That's another one that usually, if you have the old models and all of a sudden a brand new model is coming out, then the old model can have serious discounts because they want to get the inventory. They want to get rid of the old ones and make room for the new ones. So also the end of May is also key, since dealerships offer Memorial Day deals ahead of summer. Okay. And usually people are itching to get out in May anyway, and especially when they're getting ready for the beach and things, and they're thinking about getting a new vehicle. Something might be getting bigger, or they're thinking about downsizing, or getting that convertible. for the nice weather months. But if you missed May, then the end of the year, October through December, can be a good time for car shopping as well. So, and the reason for that is October is when new vehicle models head to the showroom floors and dealers want to unload existing inventory again. But while November latches on to Black Friday, so you can get some deals on Black Friday, but then in December, the dealerships are trying to make their year-end goals. So dealerships will have monthly goals, but then they also have yearly goals. Okay. And so the reason why they have the monthly goals is because you don't want to wait till December to say, okay, we should have made this much. Now we have to, all of a sudden go crazy because we really weren't focusing on it every month. So they'll break out that year-end goal into monthly goals. So hopefully you can work at that goal each month and hopefully reach that goal. But if they didn't, then in order to reach their year-end goals, they will sometimes be willing to offer bargains to meet that benchmark and say that they reached their goal. Okay, so that's going to be a good time to purchase. Now, we also talked about getting yourself into the best financial position to purchase a vehicle, okay? One of those, especially if you're financing a vehicle, first thing would be to save as much as you can to put down toward a vehicle, and that will, whatever you need to finance above that will lower your monthly payment, but you also already have a lot of equity in that vehicle, okay? So the second thing you want to do is, if you are financing, you want to make sure you can position yourself in the best light, okay? Because we always talk about being able to control the things that you can control and don't focus on things you can't. One of the things you cannot control is interest rates. So interest rates have been climbing. We're hoping that within the next 5 years or so that they start going down again. But we can't control that. Also, we are not mind readers. We do not have crystal balls. We do not know what's going to happen, okay? But we're hoping. So we have to deal with what we have because we cannot control the interest rates. So with the interest rates being so high, the best way you can control getting the best rate is by having the best score possible, okay? So with your FICO score, 65% of your score is made up of payment history and amounts owed, okay? These are the two biggest areas of your score. Payment history. This is very easy. Payment history is paying on time, right? 35% of your score is just paying on time. The second biggest area, amount owed. How much of your available credit have you used? Okay, so this is saying if you have a $1,000 credit card, how much have you used? Ideally, they do not want you to use more than 30% at any given time on that credit card. Even if you rack it up and pay it off each month, if you go above that 30% at any given time, that could affect you negatively. Okay. Next, it's length of credit history. So this is how long have you been using credit. So typically when your first line of credit has come out. Types of credit used. A mix is usually better. So if you have installment loans and revolving loans. So an installment loan is more like a mortgage, a vehicle loan, a personal loan. You have a set amount, you have a start date, you have an end date, you have a monthly payment that does not change. Revolving credit is when you have like your credit card, where you have a certain amount that you can use, And then you can pay off, you can use. You can pay off, you can use. Your payment changes because it depends on how much you've used. That's revolving. So a mix of those. If they see all revolving, then sometimes that with the algorithms that can send up red flags because it's like, why do they only have revolving credit on here, right? And then how much of your available credit is new? The reason why this is on here is because if you have a lot of new stuff all of a sudden coming on your credit report, and they consider new credit anything that's opened in the last 2 years, okay? So if you have a bunch of stuff all of a sudden you never used credit, you didn't have, but you start opening a bunch of stuff, the algorithm sends up a bunch of red flags saying, oh my God, something's happening, that they are having issues paying their monthly stuff. Okay, so that's something that you want to take into consideration if you're trying to build your credit. You do not want to open up a bunch of stuff at one time. Okay. Usually what we'll do is we will have, we'll talk about different ways that we can help build your credit or rebuild your credit. Because sometimes, it's just a matter of not having anything reporting, so we get stuff reporting on there. Other times it might be because the credit reports don't look so nice and we have to change things up. Okay. So again, your credit score is going to be something that you can control. Okay. So the higher the credit score, the better rate that you're going to get. So especially when you're doing large purchases like vehicle or a home, having the best possible rate that you have, score that you have, is going to help you save a ton of money over the long run of those purchases. Okay, so again, that's something that you can control. Now, where can you find this information so you kind of have an idea of where you're hanging out? So these are 3 different ones that are very popular. Credit Karma, which is the CK, Credit Sesame, and Credit Wise. They all practically have the same information. You can go on, you can see what's reporting on your credit. You can also have your credit score. Previously, I was talking about the FICO score, right? That's the score that financial institutions use. The credit score that these guys use is called the Vantage score. So it's slightly different. It's the same information that the FICO score uses. It's just different percentages. Okay, so the score, but at least the one thing I say is at least you get a heads up of where about your score is. Okay, so you have an idea. What's great about these guys is they'll tell you what your activity is doing. Is it you usually get the green marks or red marks? So green marks are usually telling you that what you're doing on this thing is increasing your score. It's good. Or if it's red, you have red marks. It's saying this happened. This is bad for your credit. Okay. The one thing I would say be careful of is their recommendations on how to build your score, because those are not generated to be specific to your situation. They're generic, okay? So generically, something might be good. For instance, opening up a new credit line and having more available credit but not really using it could be beneficial, because now it's saying that, oh, you have more credit available to you, but you're not needing to use it. Great. But what happens is sometimes someone will have something in collection on their account. And all of a sudden, that thing on collection, but then they have that remark saying they need to open up another credit line. So they do that, and then they wonder why their score isn't going up. Well, that's because the collection is kind of like, it outdoes the amount that you have available. Until you get that collection off there, your score isn't going to improve, or barely. And so that's why it's a really specific thing. on your specific credit report and what's going on with your credit report. And that's why we, as one-on-one coaches, we help look at your credit report and say, okay, from what I see, this is what the plan needs to be. If you want to build your credit score, this is going to be step 1, this is going to be step 2, this is going to be step 3. Okay, so that's something that can help you, and that can really help you get to a good place. So if you are going to finance a car, especially with higher interest rates, at least what's going to happen is if you have a score that's high and you're going to get the best interest rates, you're going to save yourself a bunch of money. Okay, so that's another thing to do. Okay, so again, just a wrap up. And if you guys have any questions, make sure to send those in. And again, when I send out the email with the update, I'll have all the questions and the answers for you as well. But just remember, at this time, it's a very interesting time in the auto market, and things are just a little bit uncertain. So it's really planning it out and doing that due diligence and looking at what you actually need versus what you want, and then going from there, right? And really making the decision not based on what everybody else is saying, but on your situation, on your needs, okay? Because you need to look at your financial situation and do what's best for you, not what's best for somebody else. And something that worked for somebody else might not work for you, okay? So when we're looking at doing these big purchases, you want to make sure that you have a plan in place, okay? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. And again, I will get out those questions and I will get those answers for you. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. And I hope this was very informative for you. And if you don't have a question right away and you don't ask it until afterwards, please feel free. You can email us, you can call us, and we'll get that answered for you. Okay? All right. Thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.